this legislative session, the second year of a 2-year session, we could really declare a pretty good victory for business. It was a year that could have been scary. We started out in January knowing that revenues were going to be down, and as the session went on, they kept going further and further down. So to come out of a session like that, you really have to thank the people you send us, because they got us out of it with no new taxes, no cuts on business, and that's an easy thing to do in government when it's election year. You just, election year, you don't want to cut services to people, you don't want to cut anything, and there's no money, so where do you go? You go to the cash cow, and that's us. They didn't do that, and so for all of the legislators, I see Nathan here I don't know where the rest are hiding. I want to say a thank you to them, because it was, John's over here, very responsible thing to do, a very good thing for all of business. Up here on the front in this box, I have copies that I just came off the press Thursday of our Business Insider. If you want one, feel free to pick it up. It is our wrap-up of the legislative session. It'll show you all of the issues that were considered over the 2 years, what position we took on them, how the bills ended up. It has the scorecard, where we get to grade our legislators on how they voted on business interests, so you'll be able to look at your legislators over the last 2 years and see how they voted on the bills that would have directly impacted you. And then it has an outlook at the election this year, and that's going to be a really critical election. I think it's easy for us to come out of a good legislative year like this, where business wasn't really damaged, and say, this is good, and go back to doing what we do well, which is run our businesses. I will tell you this year, if it hadn't been for the leadership of Lieutenant Governor Ramsey, the committees he was able to put together as your Speaker of the Senate, it could have been a very different year, because we saw some bills that came out of the House, we saw some bills that were floated even in the Senate, but he was able to put together some key committees that understood business, that weighed the impact of those bills on business, and that was where a lot of things were stopped. So thank you for sending us Ron Ramsey. We couldn't have done it without him. I know you're going to send him back. What I hope you'll do is get engaged at even the statewide election, because to us the most important thing is that next year when the committees are appointed again, it's Ron Ramsey appointing those committees. On the House side, you've got a very pro-business delegation. They do a good job. I think the most we can ever ask of a delegation is that the door is open, they listen to our interests, they consider them, and you will see from the voting records, pretty much vote. I think we had 7 100%ers on our voting record, and either 3 or 4 of them are from this area up here, so thank you for them. If you have any questions, don't ever hesitate to call us. I would encourage you to pick up one of these, pass it around. If you see where you've got a legislator who's not supporting business, ask them. Explain to them why it's necessary for you to have that, and send us a good legislature back next year. And with that, thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you, Deb. I'm just going to introduce real quickly a person who really needs no introduction, Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey.
Thank you, Mike, for that tremendous introduction. For somebody that didn't need any introduction, guess what you do? You don't do an introduction, so that's great. That's perfect. It is good being here for the 3rd year in a row. I always look forward to this event. I got a lot of friends in this room that I know really work hard for me to help me get elected, and I do appreciate that. Of course, the most important person I brought with me tonight is my wife, Cindy, who's sitting back here. Cindy, stand up so everybody can say thank you. I can kind of figure out that I wouldn't be standing up here if it wasn't for her. Okay, I can figure that out. She runs my business. I used to say that Cindy runs our business while I'm in Nashville. Now I just tell the truth. She runs it all the time. I just kind of show up on Saturdays. Well, I want to say thank you to Deb Woolley for what they do too. A couple of years ago, Representative Mumpower and I sat down with Deb and others and said they need to come up with a scorecard to figure out exactly what their legislators do. Because there are some legislators that come home and talk one way and go down to Nashville and vote another. Here in the Northeast Tennessee delegation, we're not like that, but there are some across the state. So they have come up with this scorecard, and I want to commend them on that, because I think it does keep people in line knowing that people are watching. And of course, I just finished up my first 2 years, first term as Lieutenant Governor and Speaker of the Senate in Tennessee. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I am having an absolute ball. I'm loving it, having a great time, traveling all across the state. As a matter of fact, tonight we'll be leaving, when we leave here and go down to Nashville for a couple of meetings the next couple of days. And I know we're here at a Chamber of Commerce function. So if you look back on what's happened over the last 2 years, I can honestly say I don't see how it could have been much better for business. I believe that. The most important thing that I get to do as Speaker of the Senate, as Deb mentioned, is appoint committees. And I'm Speaker of the Senate / Lieutenant Governor. The Lieutenant Governor, the only duty is if something happens to the governor, you become governor. The most important duties are the Speaker of the Senate. And when I sat down 2 years ago, a year ago in January, and decided to appoint these committees, I wanted to make sure that we had the committees set up the right way. And I think if you look back at our Finance Committee, if you look back at our Commerce Committee, if you look back at the other, maybe we had a little weakness in Environment Committee. We're going to work on that one just had a couple of surprises there, but we worked our way through that. If you look back, I think we did get rave reviews. Business Tennessee Magazine is probably the magazine that probably most of you all in this room get, and look back and they gave the State Senate rave reviews this year. So we had a good year. Now, right now, to be perfectly honest, after I appointed committees, we had a fellow state senator who decided he wanted to change parties, and we had a 16-16-1 state senate. And if you don't think it's tough governing at 16-16-1, you ought to come to Nashville with me just a little while. It is tough, and I don't want it to be 16-16-1 again. So I'm doing everything I can, traveling literally from Mountain City to Memphis, raising money for candidates to make sure that we do elect pro-business legislators that can come to the state senate. And we're doing that right now. We have one of those with us tonight. I want to take the opportunity to introduce him. He's running down in the 4th Senatorial District. A good friend of mine. It's 6 counties from Hawkins all the way down to Union, Granger, Jefferson, Hancock, and Hawkins. That's one I'm leaving out. We're home county. Mike Falk, stand up right here. Mike Falk is over here. And I'm not real bashful about this. This is one of the seats that I want to win and win big time. It won't be 16-16-1 for sure if that happens. If we can make that happen this year, so we'll need your support. So I just want to end by saying thank you all, and I mean that. I've spent 12 years now in the state senate, 4 years in the state house, and I can kind of connect the dots here. If the people in this room didn't elect me to be state senator, then I couldn't be Speaker of the Senate, that I couldn't be Lieutenant Governor. So I want to thank you all for that. And this is an election year for me too. I would appreciate your vote this fall, and just thank you for allowing me to serve you. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
The next person who I introduce is no stranger to you either. He's been the representative for the 2nd District for some time now. He's worked hard in Nashville. He worked hard in the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, Nathan Vaughn.
Thank you. It's a real honor and a privilege to be here before you this evening. You know, I like the idea of the symbolism of this apron because it basically represents service. And it's something that I believe strongly in as to how you represent people. You represent them in terms of serving them, doing those things that make sense. And I believe, just as John said, so many people start the conversation out when they call me by being able to say, I don't want to bother you. There are some folks who say, goodness, you called me back. And, you know, that's reflective of somewhere along the line, they ran into some political person that didn't believe in the fact that we are public servants. And so I really do take it very seriously what this is all about, and making sure that the decisions that we make sense for you. It's a real privilege on Wednesday morning to basically have the opportunity to talk with the Kingsport Chamber folks and be able to listen to what's important, because I can tell you there's no way I can understand all of the things that are important to you if I don't hear from you. And you know, things that come about. I know one issue that I got really involved in and I had no idea. One of the things was unified reporting. Now, some of you in this room, that may have a huge impact on. It was something that I was able to listen to what some of the perspectives were based upon some of the folks at the chamber, and we were able to look at whether or not that made sense. And frankly, that just didn't seem to make a lot of sense to a lot of the business folks that we talked to. We do take it seriously in terms of what you folks in this room mean to this state. And I tell folks all the time, you look at what we do, and one of the real positives of this state, Tennessee is not a high tax state. And as a result, one of those things that we do, we probably put more strain on our business community than most states in this country. Because as a result of having the low personal taxes that we have in this state, in many instances that has fallen to you, the business people of this state. And one of the things we are trying to do, we get it, we understand that we can't just continue to pass that burden on to our business. We've got to make sure that you know that the things that are important to you are important to us. And we're going to continue to work hard to make sure that we are listening to the things that you say are important and take your perspectives to the floor of the House and the Senate and make sure those things get passed or not get passed. You know, one of the things about this session that I really, really did appreciate, and I don't, again, and I said this before, I'm not trying to be critical of Washington, but when you look at what we did this year in Nashville, I think the people of this state have every reason to be proud of the folks that they're sending to Nashville to represent their interests. As Deb said, we started out with a hole in our budget, and it just progressively got worse. And in many instances, the easiest thing for us would have been to begin the blame game and the fighting and passing the buck on to each other. But we came together as a General Assembly, working with our governor, and we passed the budget. Now, that budget didn't give everything to anybody that they would have liked to have had. One of the things we tried to do was make sure that that buck wasn't passed on to business. We tried to identify those things that were truly priorities and spend our money on those things that were important. And we did it in a bipartisan way where we had a democratically controlled House and a Republican controlled, to some extent, you know, because Ron is our leader, of which we are all proud of, those folks who live here in Northeast Tennessee. But we did it in a bipartisan manner. At the end of our session, we kind of hit a roadblock, and it really didn't have as much to do with the General Assembly as it did to do with some of the things that the governor was saying that they needed to do after we left. And some of us weren't very happy with not understanding exactly how some of the things that were being done with the benefits as it related to the employees that we were going to be terminating, some of the decisions that we had to make. And both the House and the Senate came together, went to the governor, and said, listen, these are things that we need to accomplish before we're able to go home. And we were able to get those things done. And I think those are the kind of things that make you proud of the job that we do for the people of this state. Because it wasn't about us. It wasn't about Democrats or Republicans. It was about the people of this state and making sure that we were able to pass a balanced budget that made sense for the priorities of the people of this state, and that we were able to make sure that the priorities were our individual focus. And so I thank you, those folks in this room that have been supportive of me. This is, again, a campaign, an election year for me. I would appreciate your continued support. We believe that in order to have good government It takes all of us working together. It's not about partisanship. It's about the people that represent the people of this state working together to make sure that the agenda of Tennesseans is the priority for all of us. And so we thank you for this privilege and this opportunity. We look forward to working with you in the future. And again, may God continue to bless the great state of Tennessee. Thank you.
Sorry, Jason, we're out of time. I told Nathan he had 2 minutes. Never short for words. He mentioned the call. Just for those of you who don't know, the Legislative Committee has a phone call every Wednesday morning with our legislators while the General Assembly is in session. And the purpose of that phone call is to discuss with them business issues that are pending and to provide input from a business standpoint to our representatives. And I'm proud to say that all the gentlemen that are here tonight participate as often as they can. Sometimes they have committee meetings and things like that. But they do a great job, and we appreciate them listening to us during the session. And I just want to let you know that. And the decisions that we make in the committee are passed on to the legislators. Those decisions are based on the policies that the Board of Directors of the Chamber of Commerce pass. So there are guidelines that we follow in determining positions to take. The next person that I'm going to introduce, the next gentleman I'm going to introduce, is 4 votes away from changing minority to majority leader. He's going to be working really hard in the election season to try to find those 4 votes and hang on to the ones he has. He's our representative from the 3rd District. The current minority leader, majority sounds better, doesn't it? Minority leader for the House of Representatives, Jason Mumpower.
Thank you. It is very, very, very good to be here. I know it's a little loud in the back where these speakers are, so if it gets a little loud, y'all let me know. It is great to be here at this 3rd annual event and see such a tremendous turnout. And I think that last year, which was the 2nd year, there were 85 or 86 people here, and I don't know how many actually showed, but I know you had over 140 RSVP. So if it continues to grow at this rate, it's hard to tell where people will be sitting next year, but we're thrilled. And I want to thank the Kingsport Chamber of Commerce for putting this event on, and for all the sponsors who are listed on the sheet there at the back of the room. But I want to also thank and congratulate Food City. Many of you know they provided the food tonight, but they were also recently named the Independent Retailer of the Year by the Grocers Association, and that is a very high honor, and certainly that honor recognizes the good work Food City does in our community. It's also where I had my first job, where I had the best job I've ever had. I mean that. I learned more about life working at Food City than anything I have ever done. So I appreciate them very, very much. I'm glad to be here with my colleagues to report a little bit on the legislative session that we ended just over a month ago, and want to take just a minute as well to commend our freshman member of the delegation, John Lundberg. He was up here, and I can tell you, he has been such a great addition to our team. Really, he is someone who hit the ground running. It's almost like he's been there with us for so long. It's like he wasn't a freshman, hit the ground running, and there is no one in this state, no one legislator who deserves re-election more than John Lundberg, and I hope that you will help him out. Also want to talk about my appreciation for my longtime friend and our Senate Speaker and Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey. You know, unequivocally, when we're talking about business issues and we're here with the Tennessee Chamber, your House of Representatives will pass every job killer bill that comes before it. But thank goodness we have Ron Ramsey and the State Senate standing in the gap in order to stop those bills. It's a real blessing, and the Tennessee Chamber works very hard. And you'll see the scorecard, and I encourage you to pick one up tonight and hold us accountable. Hold us accountable for the votes that we cast. You know, I haven't had a chance to look at the scorecard very much. I glanced at it, and glanced at the House portion of it and can tell you that John Lundberg and I both, I know, have a 100% voting record on business issues this year and last year. And I'm grateful, Deb, for you being here, for producing the scorecard so that we can know exactly what happens, especially with the job killer bills. That's about 7 or 8 bills the Chamber has identified of special importance to business, both large and small. So I encourage you to pay attention to that. Touching on the session real quick, it's hard when you're last to cover things that the people in front of you haven't covered, but I did sit there in the back and think about a few things. You know, when you talk about the budget in particular, we dodged a real bullet this year. When we were passing a very tight budget, Governor Bredesen did have a scheme in the budget this year that would have taxed small business peoples in particular. It was a tax on family-owned non-corporate entities, or a FONSI provision some of you may have known about and a lot of you called about. We were fortunate to be able to kill that provision. There was widespread opposition to it, and that was taken out of the budget. Many of you know that I have talked about the need for medical malpractice reform year after year, and I'm glad to be able to report that we were finally able to pass a form of medical malpractice reform this year. It's fundamentally important to every facet of life in a community. It was a bill that was much weaker than it should have been, and I am hoping in the future that we can, as we continue to see the need, pass a stronger version of that bill. One of the things that I'm extremely proud of that we were able to do is pass a small employer group health insurance bill that will allow small businesses to come together to form insurance pools and be able to offer health insurance to their employees. As you know, one of the greatest needs in our community is to be able to provide a good form of insurance to people who work for a living, and this is going to go a long way towards that. That is just a very few of the issues I could touch on, and I know I've probably gone over my 2 minutes as well. I do again want to say a great big thank you to the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce. I know I have at least a weekly meeting with them in addition to the phone call we have with the Kingsport Chamber of Commerce. And I would be remiss, as I'm getting ready to embark on this campaign season, and I will be working from Mountain City to Memphis to elect candidates to the House of Representatives, to mention, you know, when you're a candidate, and I remember what it's like 12 years ago when I was coming to these events, you kind of sit through and listen to all of us who were already elected talk and try to shake a few hands. I know we have other candidates here. Dr. Phil Rowe is here. Dr. Rowe, you want to stand up and wave your hand. Tony Shipley is here. Tony, if you want to stand up and wave your hand. And I think other than those of us, Mike Falk. Mike Falk was already introduced earlier, but Mike Falk is here, certainly. Thank you all. If I can, now that we're kind of at the end of my official remarks, I have another little presentation I want to make, because it strikes me that, and I hope it strikes you, that events like this don't just happen. You know, you don't just invite people to come out and the events just happen. And the person that really heads this event up, Nicole Austin at the Chamber. Come on up here, Nicole. Nicole works hard to head this event up year after year, and it's a tough time of year for her to head it up, because it's also the time of year that her birthday falls. And last week was Nicole's birthday, and Nicole turned 29 for the second time. And, you know, it struck me that while we're here at this event, that we should not only recognize the hard work that Nicole has put into making something like this possible, but we should also recognize her birthday.